Could you tell apart a sphere from a cube by holding them in your hands? Could you tell them apart just by looking at them? What if you were born blind and you had your sight restored? Could you tell them apart just by looking at them? That was the problem put forward by a 17th century philosopher called William Molyneux about whether someone who was born blind, would they be able to differentiate a sphere from a cube just by looking at them? And there's been lots of back and forth about whether that would be the case. Some people have said definitely not. Some people have said they definitely would. Part of the reason that this is such a difficult question to answer was actually put into words very succinctly by a 1971 release from the American Foundation for the Blind, which stated that over the last 1,000 years, we only have about 20 people who have had their vision restored having been blind since birth. So it's a very small sample pool. One of the earliest on record that we have is an ancient reference to it in the Gospel of Mark, where Jesus restores the sight of a man born blind, and after doing so, he asks the man what he can see, and he says, "I see people walking around like trees." He doesn't understand what he's seeing, and then Jesus places his hands on his eyes a second time, and then he can see things clearly. He has that understanding given to him in that moment. Now, we didn't get an answer to this question about whether you could understand that having just had your sight restored until 2010, when we had 5 people who were blind from birth, and we were able to restore their sight, and they did this experiment. They showed them a cube and a sphere and asked them to work out which was which just by looking at them, and they couldn't. They took a guess, and they could tell them apart that they were different things, but they didn't associate that with the concept of a cube that they had mapped in their brain and that to a sphere which they had mapped in their brain. We need to experience things in order to understand them. Similarly, people who have been blind from birth don't even recognize their loved ones, whom they know, for up to 6 months, well after they've had their sight restored. So how we understand the world isn't intrinsic to sight. It actually has to be mapped to our understanding in the brain. And this is really relevant to some of the work that I do as an optometrist. We work with people who need to relearn those visual skills. Now, if this sort of stuff fascinates you as it does me, here at Insight Vision Care, we do a video like this once a month. So if you'd like more stuff like this, you can follow us by clicking below.